What do you think is the biggest misconception of electronic music?
I think the biggest misconception is probably that it's all about or just about good music. But I've come to realize the music business is just as much a business as any other business. And luck plays a big role as well. Consistency is so important because making music as well, it's like a muscle you need to constantly train. You can't expect to sort of just go into the studio every now and then and to write a hit song, like I maybe some people do. I spend a lot of time putting music down and not producing. So my process is like I'll come up with a little idea, like a 30-second thing, put it down for a bit, and then come back 2 weeks later. Do I still enjoy this? And then I have another session or two, put it down again for a few weeks, and so over time I sort of evaluate the progress.
Okay, welcome to Mission Makers. We're here at Amsterdam Dance Event, the final day. How has the last week been for you?
It's been fun. It's been a little bit more laid back than usual. Usually I am in Amsterdam the entire week, and this time I just decided to drive out for my own event. So it's been pretty laid back.
Nice. And you're playing tonight. Whereabouts are you playing?
Yes, at Purified. It's at Hotel Arena, a place that used to be really big for like after parties and those sort of things. And then it went underground for a little while, and lately it seems to be making a big comeback.
Nice. We have a tradition on the show where we kind of sort of dissect our guest's name a little bit. So I'm sure you probably read the questions before, but like, were you quite aware of like what your name meant?
Actually, no, it was a bit of a surprise to me because
okay.
I thought I'd looked into it.
Yeah.
But the things you came up with, I never saw them before.
Well, I didn't make them up. I can promise you that. But yeah, your name, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I'm not Dutch, but Eelke Kleijn.
Yeah, Eelke is
Eelke.
yeah.
It kind of has a connection to being noble and kind, which is a really beautiful translation. And do you feel that sort of reflects, how you move through the world? Like, are you generally like a kind person?
I think so. I like to think I am. And I do get a lot of feedback from like people and fans that I'm quite down to earth and approachable. So I guess there's some truth to that.
Amazing. Well, yeah, that's really, we always find that there tends to be a little bit like a correlation. I think I don't believe in coincidences too much. So you've always blurred the lines between artist, composer, and entrepreneur. But what was that first moment that you really realized that this was going to be your calling in life?
As a kid, I did a lot of stuff with music. It started with making mixtapes and sort of just being involved in music, listening a lot. I got to play an instrument a little bit after that when I was 12.
What was the instrument?
It was piano.
Okay,
yeah. So I took piano lessons. I got invited to work at the store where I had my lessons. So I could take home equipment during the weekend and then bring it back, on Tuesday when the store opened. But I think the big thing was when I went out for the first time, I was 15, almost 16. And I saw the local resident DJ like scratching records. And that was that instant that I knew like, oh, that's what I want to do.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, my next question was going to be, was there a catalyst, a person or something that revealed, but you answered?
Yeah, a couple of things. But this was definitely one of those things where I knew I wanted to DJ. And then the production part was sort of kind of came naturally because I just thought if I wanted to DJ, I probably should make records because that was what all my sort of people I looked up to were doing. So I started producing at the same time, and all those things came together nicely.
So you didn't find it too challenging going into production, or was there in the beginning a bit of because it's a very steep learning curve, of course?
Yeah, I was actually surprised how easily I could make full tunes. Like between sort of ages 15 and 18, I was kind of messing around, never really finished anything, but I was sort of low key playing with it. But when I really tried to commit and actually make tracks, I was surprised at how quickly I was able to make music, but also how quickly I was able to sign music to record labels, because that all happened in the span of maybe 2 or 3 years or so.
So how did you sign your first record deals?
Well, I was a bit of a nerdy kid. I grew up with the launch of the internet. So I just started writing emails to record labels that I thought were interesting. And I emailed a couple at the same time, and 1 or 2 came back saying like, well, we like your music and we'd love to release it. And yeah, that was the start of it, basically.
And the ship started sailing. Amazing. And so, a natural evolution for many artists is, of course, to set up their own imprint, right? And you've built Days Like Nights into a really solid and respected label, and events brand as well. So what kind of core philosophies guide your curation and your leadership around that?
When it comes to the music, the most important thing I always say is that it's music that I want to play out as an artist. So I don't try to look at profile too much. It's important, but the key is music. That needs to be right. And then with the label, we've launched it in 2017, and the original idea was just to have an output for my own music as well, because I was always sort of doing a lot of different stuff at the same time, a lot of different genres, and I had quite a bit of a hard time finding one record label where I felt like I could really fit in. And that's why the idea for the label started. And
I think, we were just talking with Anama about that, because he's definitely a multifaceted or multi-genre artist. Do you think that, we're kind of in that sort of almost blurred lines kind of world of like less it being about even if you look at some genres on Beatport, like the charts don't really reflect the identity of that. Yeah. How do you feel about that?
It's both an advantage and a disadvantage. It's because people like things that are easily put into like catalogs. Yeah, exactly. And so if I decide to do a more like a disco track one time, and the next one is more transy, some people might not follow you. But I think over the long run, it pays off. Like people know what they can expect from you. But especially in the beginning, it can be a challenge. And I do think for new artists, it's good to carve out your sort of unique sound in a single direction.
And then pivot a little bit if you want to.
Yeah.
And what made Armada the right partner to sort of, pair with for your label? Tell us about that relationship.
Yeah. So I'd run, before Days Like Nights, I ran a different record label, which was called Outside the Box. And I ran pretty much all of that myself. And I quickly realized how much work it actually is running a record label the right way. And so I did that for maybe 6 or 7 years, and then at some point
completely by yourself, no one helping you.
Just by myself. I did everything: distribution, the signing, the contracts. And at one point, I realized if I want to keep doing this, I need like a good partner for this. Jeroen Terrehorst, who works as head A&R at Armada, he used to be my publisher at EMI. And so when I was talking with my manager Jeroen Fontijn about where to sort of plant this seed for the label, we were like, well, maybe we should give Jeroen a call, and see if this is something that Armada would be interested in. And we gave him a call, and he was like, yeah, let's do it.
So going from being completely independent and then joining such a huge like label ecosystem, what were some of the things that initially were like, oh, that's really different how they do it there, or like, and tell us what surprised you.
Yeah, just things like, by now they have offices in, I think it's 3 or 4 different countries, and studios in different places, and all these things you don't really working with vocalists. Like they do these writing camps, and you can just enlist, and a lot of vocalists will enlist as well, and you get matched up with people to write songs, and all these things you don't really think about when you just think about a record label, but it comes in incredibly handy.
Do they allow you a complete sense of like your creative control?
Pretty much, yeah. I do value their opinion and my manager's opinion on music a lot as well. So for instance, if I have a track, could be by another artist, but could be by me as well, and they don't like it and my manager doesn't like it, I will probably go back into the studio and make changes. So there's a couple of people's opinions who I value really highly. And so I feel like I have creative freedom, but to the sense that everyone kind of needs to like it. And it's also me personally, if a lot of people tell me that they don't like a certain song, I go and second guess whether it was really a good song or not.
Do you try to like test it out on the dance floor maybe to also get another opinion, right?
Yeah, and it's a funny thing. When I test out a new song on the dance floor and you get a really good reaction, it's always an honest one because nobody has heard the tune before. But it can backfire as well, where I've played a new tune on the dance floor and I get hardly any reaction at all. And that plants this little seed in my head that the track is not good enough. And it usually means I go back into the studio and I change things.
Fair enough. Yeah, you have to, of course, adapt. How do you sort of measure the success now of the label? What are your KPIs? Is it growth? Is it impact? Is it consistency? Is it maybe not even a KPI, something more intangible?
I think it's consistency mostly. Yeah, because I feel over the long run, you need to be consistent in the music that you put out. And just as my own preferences as a producer, that I feel the label is also pretty varied. So we do get a lot of different songs and styles on there. But the key for me is consistently putting out good music.
So how far in advance are you creating? Like when you go into the studio, is it like 2 years ahead of time kind of thing to get? Because I think that's the secret hack for consistency, right? Is to be very ahead in a way.
I spend a lot of time putting music down and not producing. So my process is like I'll come up with a little idea, like a 30-second thing, put it down for a bit, and then come back, 2 weeks later. Do I still enjoy this? And then I have another session or two, put it down again for a few weeks. And so over time, I sort of evaluate the progress. And also if the direction I'm taking is the right one. And I've noticed for me it's the best approach because it makes me write music that sort of stands the test of time, I think, which for me is always an important thing. I really dislike it if I finish a song and then half a year later I go like, oh, it could have been better, So that pause in between is really what I need to put out good music.
That's so interesting because like obviously everyone has like a very different relationship with time, but also like as producers like finishing records. And like for me, I know you obviously wear a lot of hats, and I'm sure that you're probably not in the studio every day, right? Like it's almost...
I try to be.
Are you in the studio every day?
I try to be
Even
if I'm
what about
not
touring?
Traveling.
Yeah, exactly. Traveling, right? But then like on in a month, like on average, how many days are you on the road like in a month? Apart from summer, which I think is a bit of an anomaly.
Yeah, I'd say most weekends, apart from one, I'll be on the road. But that often means like you leave on Friday midday or so, and you'll be back by Sunday evening or Monday or so.
Yeah.
And then during the week, I actually try to be in the studio every day if I can.
That's amazing, man. Maybe I should do that, but unfortunately, like I balance too many hats. Well, I love the hats that I'm wearing, and actually, like there was a time when I was full time just like producing and touring, and I almost felt like it was too freeing, like having nobody like to be, or like not having anything next on your schedule. Where like, oh, I got that pressure now where like I know I've got to do this or meet this deadline, and I found that like once I actually started doing many things outside of that, like it just put this self-imposed pressure to like kind of just get to the point fast. But also like in general, like when you turn up to the studio, like you don't know that like today you're going to create something amazing. Like it's just by turning up first of all, right? But I feel like when something interesting is actually happening and that magic is somehow like coming through, then I'm committed to that thing for like at least 48 hours, and anything that needs to be extracted as much as it can, because I feel like when I leave it after a period of time, like I've evolved, like I don't know, things have changed, and the last 20% is always like, yeah, that takes time, right? Because that's the micro adjustments. But yeah, it's interesting how we all have like different...
I wish I could work like that. I know a lot of artists that go into the studio and finish a song within a day or two. And I was never able to do it. And I just noticed my music gets better if I give it that pause in between. Yeah.
And speaking of like the music that you create, like you kind of work across 3 like very different forms of storytelling. So for anyone who doesn't know, you're also in film and gaming as well. And then obviously dance music. So does your process like change when you're scoring things that are maybe more emotional for a specific scene, or soundtracking more of an interaction piece for like a player on a game? And then obviously the dance floor energy is also quite, I mean, it could be, you could see it in the same, all 3, but it's, but they are also inherently different in a way.
Yeah, no, it definitely differs. When you, especially what I used to do a lot was scoring for like movie trailers and game trailers, but mostly in the trailer business. And then, so you're writing for very short sort of 2.5, 3 minute sort of music pieces. And you get a detailed briefing of what they're actually looking for, so that you almost never get image, but you get like a written down explanation of like, this is happening and then this will happen, and almost down to the sort of minute marker where your cue needs to hit. And often also with references, like, we like this song, so can you make it sound like that song, but not obviously, Yeah. So it's somewhat freeing, because when I write dance music, like all all bets are off. You can do whatever you want. Whereas this is very much inside the box, and I like the combination of the two, because this feels sometimes like I don't have to turn my creativity on too much, and I can just sort of focus on what they actually need. And I quite like that.
Specific moments where you might be doing more of one thing, or it all just depends on what you've been maybe commissioned to work on?
Yeah, I have to say the last, basically since COVID, it's mostly been dance music. Like I just haven't had that much time to work on film, mostly because the assignments have really quick turnarounds, like 2 to 3 days sometimes. Yeah, you'll get an email on a Friday afternoon like, hey, can we listen to something on Monday morning? And then when you have like shows in the weekend, it's just not happening. So I had to put it down a little bit, but it's something I look forward to picking up again in the future.
Fair enough. And I know that you mentioned nature as quite a big influence in your life, and I'm curious to know, is there like an element or a season or a particular landscape that really inspires you or that you really connect with?
Probably a season, summer. Like I get very creative in summer. I'm a bit of I like the warmth. I don't like, autumn with the rain and the gray skies. And I've always thought maybe the Netherlands is not the best place to live because of the weather we get. But how I've tackled it in the studio is sort of blinded everything. So you don't really see whether it's a sunny day or a really dark day outside. So the atmosphere is always somewhat the same.
But then what about in the summer when that sunshine is coming through?
Well, then every now and then you walk outside into the garden and you sit down for a little bit and you kind of feel it, yeah.
So you're a summer guy.
For sure, yeah.
And what's something that, like in your creative process, that you feel you've had to kind of unlearn to actually make you a better artist?
Over producing my stuff. Like especially in the early days, I would often keep on adding layer upon layer of, extra melodies, extra effects, extra things. And then you listen to some of the biggest hits and you go like, well, it's only a vocal and this one melody, and you don't actually need that much. But as a producer, and especially when you're learning, you always seem to think like, or at least I seem to think like, I need to add more stuff to this. And so stripping it down to the bare basics of the song was the most difficult thing I had to learn. And I'm actually still learning and struggling with that on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, as we are our biggest self-critic, right? And I think most producers face that challenge of it took me 7 years before I released anything into the world. And in 2020, pandemic happened and I had to look at myself, am I going to be a bedroom producer for the rest of my life? And it was great because I signed up to like this mental course for creativity, and it just like simple exercises just completely changed the game. And anyway, so I'd also like to know, was there ever a time when you didn't want to do music anymore?
There was, and actually not too long ago. Like after COVID, I played so much in that sort of boom after COVID, and then I think during COVID I did my circle show on Mont Saint Michel, and
amazing.
Yeah, and thank you. And then like it got into this string of bookings that were just never ending. And in the beginning, you're really excited. You're playing 80, 90 shows a year, and you think like, wow, everything's going great. But then at one point, I kind of realized like I'm just on the road all the time. I don't have time for my family at home. I don't have time for writing music. And I always said what I loved about being an artist is all the different things that I do. The label, the writing for film, the writing for my own sets. And all of a sudden, I found myself in a situation where I was just traveling and playing music, and that was all I was doing. And it led to I'm not sure if it was a burnout, but it was pretty close. And in retrospect, I feel like I'm still kind of recovering from it. But I'm feeling better like every week, every month. But I had to take some time off. Now I'm like planning a free weekend every month. I'm playing 1 or 2 months off every year. And I feel I need that time to enjoy life more.
I mean, it's interesting when you look at like the past and like, obviously they always say like DJs are the new rock stars or whatever because they sell out stadiums, right? But like if you just look at your favorite rock band, like they would have those summer tours or whatever, but then they would have the winter where they would just be like creating and recuperating from that enormous amount of energy exchange, right?
Yeah.
So now, like, what's the perfect like how many I'm guessing it's obviously not 80, 90 gigs now.
It's a little bit less.
It's
Yeah.
less, right?
We just realized like I never had to plan my off time. Always in the middle of my career, sort of, or when it started, there were just naturally periods where I didn't play as much because you wouldn't get booked. But then after COVID, that changed, and if I wanted to, I could play every weekend. And in the beginning, that's what I did, and I said yes to everything. And now I realize I really need to plan those off days. So we don't really say like, oh, let's do 40 or let's do 60 gigs or so. But at the beginning of the year, I just block a whole bunch of weekends, and I say like, okay, February is going to be a month for being at home, and maybe somewhere early autumn or something. Yeah, and then we take it from there. We plan around that.
Do you think that emerging artists breaking through, who, like, you know, the newer generations, they have sort of seen firsthand what this grueling life, you know, can do, because obviously we're much more transparent and have many more forms of like storytelling essentially. Do you think they have the luxury of like being able to say that like you'll set those boundaries, or do you think that they need to play those amount of shows and establish their name and then kind of take a step back?
I think that last one, because like when you're up and coming, you usually don't have the luxury of saying yes to like 80 shows a year. But when you realize that is actually happening and you can say yes to all those shows, that is probably also the moment where you should, you know, maybe, because some people thrive by doing that, you know, so it differs per person, I think. So you should probably experience it and then say like, okay, this is what I want to do, or this is not me, and I need more off time. But for me, it was pretty clear, like I need a better balance of family time and DJing and producing.
Speaking of family, so I know you're a father, right?
Yeah.
Like, how's that journey just been for you, like in music in the beginning, like in the first place?
It was interesting because I became a father when I was 29, which is young compared to like most of my friends. They were like in their mid 30s.
But not young compared to our parents' generation, right?
No, it was like.
But I hear you, yeah. Most guys.
It was younger than my father, actually. I think my father had me when he was 31 or so. But yeah, so in the beginning, what was really difficult for me was my wife used to work full time. I was in the studio full time. And so I had the whole day to myself making music. She'd come home, I cooked dinner. Then she went to her horse and I would be in the studio a little bit more. So I had all day to myself. And then from that, you go to a situation where my wife stopped working. My daughter was at home. I was at home in the studio. And all of a sudden you're with 3 people in your house, like at all times. And that took a lot of adjustments from my end. And also just realizing, and that took even longer, that there's Eelke Kleijn, the artist, but there's also the family man, and both of them need attention. You can't just focus on being an artist and let everything else just go, you know?
You know, I mean, especially with the touring aspect, like has that placed any sort of challenge on that relationship?
Yeah, it was difficult the first 2 years, I'd say. Like when my daughter's 13 now, so it gets easier. They are more independent and self-sufficient, but those first 2 years were quite rough. And I remember when my daughter was just born, my wife had to get back to work after 6 weeks or so. And on the exact same week, I went on tour to Australia for the first time for 3 weeks. And that was just like juggling, you know, with all these things that you needed to do. And I think in retrospect, I was a little bit too easy, like just saying like, okay, I got to go on tour, bye, you know, that's your problem now. And definitely led to some stress. But we emerged from that stronger. But I can definitely see that put a lot of strain on relationships and on artist careers as well.
Hard, right? Because like obviously those gig opportunities are coming up, and like when you go to Australia, it's not going to be for like 2 days, right? So It's hard. Like and when the train is moving, it's hard to get off as well. And just kind of, I hear you. But do you think that, especially like I was actually having this conversation earlier today about like, especially when you're an artist, like, you know, when you work in a company, like, you know, how many days you're going to get off for like, you know, being a parent, and you get paid to do that, right? Like you have rights, right? But when you're an independent, you just don't have that luxury, and you're not replaceable either. Like there isn't another Eelke Kleijn. Like,
no,
do you know what I mean, right? So in a way, like, do you feel that there's something that you wish the industry could do better to support people who are on that path, who are artists?
It's hard. I think it's more of an individual journey. because there's so many type of artists. I've met artists that love being on the road, and they don't have a relationship at home, and they maybe they have a small condo or something, and they just love being on the road for like 3 months at a time. But when you have a family at home, it's such a different story. And I do think there's a lot more awareness about these things, and it's a talk every artist should have with their team, with management or whoever. But it is something you need to talk about, because I sort of just, for a long time, I sort of just went with the flow. And it definitely leads to, losing your passion a little bit if you're not careful at some point, because you're sort of trying for everything, but then you can't do everything 100%. You fail at everything at the same time.
Do you believe that it's actually possible to step back for a little bit, to be there at home and then come back? Like as in when you have a job, you have like, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months off. Do you actually believe that artists could do that, or is it very difficult?
To some extent, you can. I've experimented with this in 2016, just before I set up my own label. I was like searching for my sound and for where to release my music, and so in the road to setting up Days Like Nights, I didn't release anything in the whole year of 2016, and it was a bit of an experiment as well, just to see like what happens if I don't release music for a year. And the gigs sort of, they kept on coming. But the second 6 months, I could notice a bit of a drop, because you don't really have anything new to tell. So I think you can do it, but not for years at a time. Yeah.
Don't go and have 10 children, okay?
No.
So when you're performing, and you have so many fans, and, it's like, well, actually, would you say you're an introvert or an extrovert?
No, more introvert.
Yeah.
Yeah. People don't always notice it because I'm quite open and talkative, but in reality I'm a little bit more introvert. I'm on the autistic spectrum as well.
Are you?
Yeah, just as my daughter, and not super I'm not super autistic, but there's these quirks that I have that I know can be problematic sometimes. Yeah.
So how do you, and I'm introverted too, so I do feel like it's quite, in fact, even a week like this is a great testament to like the test of an introvert, because it's quite overwhelming actually. There's a lot going on, and so when you're performing in front of thousands of people, like how do you reconnect with yourself after something like that?
Well, the funny thing is I find the performance element the sort of easy part. What is hard for me is the before the shows and after the shows, like everybody talking to you and taking pictures. And I don't get me wrong, I like all of that, but it takes a lot of energy. And so I try not to do it too much before the show, because just all the impulses and everybody talking to you is quite a lot before I actually have to play. And then once I start playing, it's just me in my zone.
It's you in the zone, right?
Yeah.
But then what about afterwards then? Because that's when you've gone through the adrenaline,
Yeah.
you've all that's sort of happened. It might be a late time at night as well, so it might not be your circadian rhythm type thing.
Yeah. I'm good at sleeping at anywhere at any time.
Oh no, you're lucky.
Yeah. So what I usually do is I'll stick around for like half an hour if time permits, and I don't have like an early departure the next morning, just to talk to people. And then I'll go back to my hotel, and I need like 20 minutes to sort of take it down. Sometimes what I do is listen to binaural beats on my headphones, just to like sort of put your head in a sort of calm mood. And then usually I fall asleep within 5 or 10 minutes or so.
I'm just curious to know as well, like, do you ever get performance anxiety, like before a show or anything like that? Or is that kind of gone a little bit now?
It's pretty much gone, apart from playing live shows. That's where I still get some form of anxiety. The worst anxiety I ever had was for playing the Circle show.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, just because it was a live show. It was a live show. I hadn't played much before, and I was playing live synths on top, and I was using my laptop just for software instruments, and it was quite a complex setup, and there were just so many things that could go wrong. And I had practiced like 3 weeks nonstop, like literally every day, three runs of the whole show. And so it went well, but I was just super nervous for that. And nowadays for live shows, it's better because I'm more accustomed. My setup is really, I'm really comfortable with it. But I still get more nervous for those than for DJ gigs.
Well, also once you've done something like Circle, it's sort of like, it's like if you've done a TED Talk now, like doing public speaking somewhere else might not be as intimidating, right?
Yeah, unless you haven't done it for a while.
Okay,
like I don't enjoy public speaking too much either. And if I'm sort of in the zone, like here at ADE, you have the first one and then you think like, oh, that went well. And then, the rest of the week goes really well. But then if I don't do it for half a year, I'm right back to the start and I get a bit anxious again.
Fair enough. Well, thank you for sharing that. What do you think is the biggest misconception of electronic music?
I think the biggest misconception is probably that it's all about or just about good music. But I've come to realize the music business is just as much a business as any other business. And luck plays a big role as well. And so does having the right connections, meeting the right people at the right time, and you can have all these things going for you and still somehow not succeed just by a luck factor
I mean, how are you feeling about the scene right now? Because it's in a strange space, like, culturally. I mean, there's a lot of factors at play right now.
It's interesting. It's for the first time in my entire career, I feel like music is not the most important element anymore. It's the performance or the entertainment element that has actually taken over. And I was really keen on social media during its rise, the early 2010s, and it seemed like something really good. But now it almost feels like music is just being shoved to the background, and it's all about analytics and algorithms and those sort of things. And I kind of dislike it, to be honest.
But how do you navigate sometimes the pressures of the algorithms and things like that? Or do you try not to play into it too much? But I mean, it's like also just the fact that you have to constantly think about making content, right? Like I think that is a stress factor.
I'm of the generation that grew up completely without social media. And even with the internet, for the first 12 years, it wasn't there yet. So I have to force myself to make content all the time. And also like when I'm on a holiday or so, I can go for like 7 days without taking a single picture. And I constantly have to remind myself to do those things.
We're in 2025.
Yeah. And so I kind of dislike it. I do it to some extent, but I don't think I'll ever become one of those like influencer DJs that, that's
Please don't
just,
become that.
No, I don't want to, but they have built their profile about being as much an entertainer as an artist. And I feel like I'm more of an artist, and I would actually prefer, if this is the direction the scene is going in and continues to go in, I would see myself ending up more in the background a little bit, just as a producer, maybe low-key sort of DJ, but I don't want to play the whole algorithm game too much.
For sure. I feel like, hopefully this, I don't know what the right word is, but like it's kind of like a hijack of the scene, to be honest, because it's like the people that really are authentic, that really have worked for decades, or, and all those things, their shows are at risk because they're not dancing in a certain way, or they're not doing that performative element. But I really hope this is a bubble that bursts in the next 18 months or something, because it's not going to lead to good stuff.
It's difficult, most authentic artists, they perform themselves, they write their own music, they often run like a small label maybe on the side. And how are you going to compete with people that have teams of, tenfolds of people just doing everything for them, even to the extent where, they don't write their own music. And, I get it, like pop has made this sort of, and rock music has seen these sort of changes as well. But it's not something I prefer to write my own music, and I don't need other people to write music for me or finish my music or something. And so I'm probably always going to be more of an independent artist doing all those things myself.
Well, speaking of independent artists, we're here today on October 25th. And I just launched my own label in September, as I was just telling you before we hit record. And
amazing.
Thank you. And today's like one of the launch events at ADE. And I'm very like humbled and grateful to be even able to bring my label to ADE, obviously. But what advice would you have, someone like me who's just started a label and is kind of on that journey,
Yeah, I always give the same advice to people, and that is that consistency and uniqueness is really key. Like consistency is so important because making music as well, it's like a muscle you need to constantly train, and you can't expect to sort of just go into the studio every now and then and to write a hit song, you know. Like I maybe some people do, but I've always found it works best if you try to write music like consistently all the time, and then all the good stuff will find its way out, you know. And the same can be said for labels. Like consistency is key.
Absolutely. Well, we're already into our sort of like third and fourth gear of the next few releases, and I actually spent 18 months before I launched this to build the team. And
amazing,
you know, kind of I'm one of those people that's just a bit of a perfectionist, so it's kind of like I prepare to. I'm very much a planner, so hopefully I think what probably it also is like it's consistency is everything, of course, but sometimes like because just you have to do so much, there's an overwhelm, and sometimes, you know, you just need to take a break, and then that consistency can dip a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But that's just being human, I think, to be honest with you.
No, for sure. I noticed that as well. Like I wear a lot of hats too, and you can't do everything 100%. So like when you're in the studio, there's other stuff that's not getting done at that time.
Yeah,
but that is also being human.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, final question to wrap up. What question do you wish interviewers asked you but never have done yet?
Very good one. What car do you drive?
Me personally?
No, that would be the question.
Are you a car guy?
Yeah, I like cars.
Nice.
I like Formula One.
Oh, shit.
A lot of those things. And I always thought cars tell a lot about people. And so I've been waiting for ages to get an interview question like, hey, what car do you drive? And I talk about that. And nobody's ever done that.
You're in the right hands because I used to race cars. I don't know if you...
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's awesome.
I got in up to F3 actually.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I'm very much into cars. And actually this show, Mission Makers, when it first launched in 2020, it was also interviewing people from the Formula One motorsports world.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And then I tried to create this very interesting medium or like, you know, when you see that pie chart and you've got like that one where like the person's like in all the circles. And sometimes I meet people who genuinely like have been in the motorsport industry and are in the music industry. Like, great example, I'll send you the episode, but this guy, Jaime Alguersuari, do you know him?
What's his name, sorry?
Jaime Alguersuari.
I don't think so.
His artist name is Pole Position, and he was a former Red Bull Formula One driver turned DJ.
Oh, cool.
And he's performing today actually at ADE. And I think, you know, there's a really interesting, although it might not seem obvious, but a really interesting correlation between the world of motorsports and the world of music, because just like, you know, for example, like Formula One teams, they're like on the road all the time, right?
Yeah.
And they're the absolute best at what they do. Like they might have 800 people working in their team, engineering, marketing, HR, hospitality, but they're the best of the best, right? But it, you know, those people are all facing similar things where they're like constantly traveling. They have to be at their best. Yeah. When you're DJing, you know, it doesn't matter if you've not slept. It's just sort of like you've got to give that amazing show. And I don't know. It's kind of like this mindset of an athlete that I feel like to really win in music is something that you want to kind of adopt. But that being said, what car do you drive?
I drive a Mini.
Okay,
I like the bigger one, the Countryman. Because I like all the quirk. I'm a sort of physical buttons and things guy. I don't like all those cars with like big TFT screens. And so I drive a Mini that still has like all the gauges and all the physical things. And I love all the quirkiness from it.
Have you been, are you a Max Verstappen?
Yeah.
You're a Verstappen fan?
Verstappen, yeah.
Nice. Have you been to the races?
Yeah, I went to Singapore and Barcelona. And I guess I've been following Formula One since the Schumacher days. And then I kind of lost interest for a little bit, like mid-2010s or so. And I started watching again when Max joined Toro Rosso. That's when I really got into it again.
Wow, amazing. And have you ever been racing yourself? Like, even go-karting?
I actually got, I haven't. I've done go-karting once, but that's like 20 years ago. But for my birthday this year, I got a whole race driving experience here at Zandvoort. So you get to drive all kinds of cars up to Formula 3, I think. And I still need to do that. So hopefully early next year.
Yeah, it should be in the summer, not now with this weather. Oh, amazing. Well, I think that's... Well, actually, wait. Then one more question, because you brought up racing now, so I feel like you've opened a bit of a thing. But I know we have to end in a second. But like, if you could write music for either one game that's in the motorsport world, or an advert for a supercar, what would it be? Which car would it be?
That's a good one.
Pagani?
Pagani. I absolutely love the way they build their cars and the interiors, and that would be a car I would love to ride for. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Well, we got to make that happen, man. Nice. Okay, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and your insights.
My pleasure.
And have an amazing day.
Thank you. You too.
Hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed having this conversation. If you want to grab a copy of today's show notes, then head over to missionmakers.com, where you'll also find notes from all of our previous episodes. And if you're interested in talking to me about future opportunities at Davos, producing podcasts, or coming down to some of our music and motorsports events, then you can reach out to me at Mission Makers or at dj.n1nja on Instagram. Thank you as ever for listening, and until next time, keep it laser focused.